Welcome everybody to Studs Weekly Podcast. I am joined by the always grateful Santi. We will be discussing the biggest topic in sports this week, and straight to the point, we need to talk about fantasy football. Fantasy football championships were this week. If you are a fantasy football player, you understand the difficulty in getting to the finals. If you make the bye week, you have a 60% chance to then win. I had 3 bye weeks. I lost them all. The point is, fantasy football is all luck at the end of the day. You can draft as best as you can, but the skill part of it is the drafting and picking up waiver wires. Look, we can have a team filled with Bijan, Gibbs, Mahomes, all these great players, Bowers. It means nothing because fantasy football at the end of the day is all about who's healthy and who's getting the usage. And the usage is the biggest thing here. We see opportunities given to these players. A lot of people love to have a Bill Crossy Merritt as their top drafted guy, but he didn't get the usage until the end of the season. And we see that time and again with these rookie running backs. We see that with so many people. And I always say you can never win your league in the first round or the second round drafting, but you can most certainly lose it. And whether that is drafting the Justin Jeffersons, whether that is drafting Malik Neighbors, it is so important to build a base for the team. And we see just this year with CMC, whenever he is healthy, he is a dog. He is a top 2 running back in the league, and he's not 2. We saw it this year. He has been healthy. He's a wide receiver almost with getting so many receptions. That is just a true testament of how good that he is in fantasy. And again, when we look at some of these great players, they can just fall off a cliff during the fantasy playoffs, and some of them being the Jahmyr Gibbs or Josh Allen putting up 6 points, or then Josh Allen getting saved 5 minutes left of 2 tush-push touchdowns. We are talking about luck here at the end of the day. Fantasy football should be fun, but there's no fun when you are up against Derrick Henry, the first game of the week, and he puts 50 on your head. And we just see some of these players that have a high floor or maybe a high ceiling that you kind of go back and forth on. But my question to you, Santi, is would you rather have someone that gets 10 targets and 40 yards or someone that gets 3 targets and 2 touchdowns?
That's a tough one because obviously when you look at it from a game perspective, obviously the 3 catches for 2 touchdowns is going to be way more important. But how many guys are actually doing that? We're talking about like the Darren Wallers of the world. We're talking about Taysom Hills of the world. When I want to pick my guys, I want to pick a guy who gets that ceiling, who gets that floor also. A guy who's going to get 8 receptions no matter what the game is. Number 1, Khalil Shakir is a guy who has consistently put up 10 to 12 points every single fantasy week. He does have his down moments, but most of the times he's performing even without the touchdown. It's kind of the big argument of the Seahawks running backs. Kenneth Walker, a guy who's getting all the carries, who's getting most of the work. Once it gets to the goal line, hey, Kenneth Walker, get out of here. We got Zach Charbonnet. Zach Charbonnet comes in and he takes his fantasy work. When you were talking about fantasy losers, I mean, the first 2 guys that came to my mind is Lamar Jackson, a guy who just got completely out. You were probably relying on him to start this week, and he did not. And then Brock Bowers, a guy who got injured and was probably your maybe top 3 in the first 3 rounds of your fantasy draft, and he goes out on IR for the rest of the season. You don't have a tight end now. I mean, you just have to scramble. Fantasy is all about scrambling and trying to find who can fit in. Luther Burden, a guy who came absolutely heavy towards the end of the season, probably won you your fantasy playoffs, or at least contributed it to some format. I can think of so many other guys. I mean, Bill, at the very end of the season, if you had him somehow starting this week, he performed really well. But if you had him starting in every other week, you probably lost this year. I am a guy who was out of the playoffs in 2 leagues and out in the first round in 2 other leagues. A lot of losers on my goddamn squad, and I just hope for another year. I'm hoping next year I'm not going to draft the Lad McConkeys of the world. I'm not going to draft Malik Neighbors. I don't know if you saw, Andy, Malik Neighbors has an IHOP commercial where you can eat all you can eat pancakes because you probably lost your fantasy playoffs and you probably have a fantasy punishment. If you drafted Malik, you definitely have that. And one of the bigger winners that you would expect to be one of your losers in every other year was CMC. CMC never got hurt. He consistently played for the Niners. Everyone around the Niners got hurt except for CMC. And he was definitely probably one of your biggest winners this fantasy playoffs. And I hope you guys all had a very lucky and joyful fantasy finals. CMC is such a big winner of the 49ers, but let's just talk about the big win of the 49ers. Sunday Night Football, 49ers versus the Chicago Bears, game of the year. Pillar to post, every single minute of this football game was magic. Both offenses were clicking. Both defenses had no idea what the fuck was going on. It is exactly what Sunday Night Football needs to be. It needs to be an absolute shootout. And Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers won this shootout. Looking at this objectively, Brock Purdy over the last 3 games has performed tremendous. 5 touchdowns, total touchdowns in 2 games, back to back. Not a lot of QBs have that under their belt. And overall, he has 11 touchdowns with 2 interceptions in the last 3 games. Brock Purdy is performing to an extreme levels. And when you think about it, earlier in the year, there was the argument Brock Purdy over Mac Jones over Brock Purdy. Who should start? It is so obvious and clear to us that it's Brock Purdy now. But back then, what were people thinking, Andy?
What people were thinking was that this man was going to gritty himself into a starting spot, which he isn't. And I think we've been spoiled with the Sam Darnolds and some of these recent resurgencies at quarterback to where people thought Mac Jones could be the guy. And I think Brock Purdy did a very good job just these last 3 weeks and kind of solidifying himself as the QB1. And look, you can do anything in a 3-game span. I mean, look at Jacoby Brissett. For fantasy, he's been great. For real life football, he's been terrible. And I think it kind of plays here when you look at someone like Brock Purdy dealing with, I mean, look, we're looking 4th, 5th options at wide receiver. No Debo, no Ayuk. This man, as much as you don't want to say it, deserves the flowers that he is now getting. I will say, Mac Jones, I think he could be a very good backup. I feel like he can be, maybe the Nick Foles or, someone that is not going to lose you a game and can manage a game pretty well. But to say that he should be starting over Brock is kind of asinine to me.
And listen, Mac Jones has that gritty, but Brock Purdy has that Dougie. He is absolutely Dougieing his way through this league. And you brought it up greatly about the overall injuries. Brock Purdy's throwing it to guys who aren't your number 1 receivers, especially isn't the number 1 guy that you paid for in Brandon Ayuk, who is sitting out this year pretty much. When you look at this team, the 49ers in general, you have an injury-prone team and they continue to win. They're battling for their own destiny with the first seed, and there's a possibility where every single game of theirs can be a home game in the playoffs, including the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl's in San Fran. It could be a San Francisco home game every single game for the Niners. Overall, when you look at the Niners and the big storyline, I think the biggest takeaway is Kyle Shanahan and the ability of Kyle Shanahan and the credit that he should be getting to be able to push this team to the first seed with all the obstacles that's been in front of him. I feel like I don't need to remind you, even if you're a 49er fan, which I am, but if you're not, Fred Warner, best linebacker in the league, one of the best linebackers the 49ers have ever laid their eyes upon, out for the year. Nick Bosa, one of the best rushers in the league, most sacks in the league most of the times, is in the top 5, out for the year. Brandon Ayuk is a princess pussy and will stay on the sidelines, out of the year. George Kittle was out for most of this year. Trent Williams was out in the Chicago game, and yet Kyle Shanahan figures out ways to beat these top-level teams. How is he not? My overall takeaway to this, that I'm going to pass it over to Andy. How is this guy not Coach of the Year? How is he not the front runner of Coach of the Year? Back to back, we have always seen Kyle Shanahan perform and be this high-stakes coach who has consistently proven to be successful, has consistently proven to have a winning record no matter what the team can be. And yet he doesn't ever win Coach of the Year. He's never even a thought for Coach of the Year because of his dominance, because of how good Shanahan is. But he deserves it this year. In my opinion, what other coach deserves it over Kyle Shanahan, Andy?
Well, you brought up some very good points, and I think he should win it if a man named Ben Johnson was not in the league, and he was not the coach of the Chicago Bears, the team that was the number 1 seeded team in the NFC, the team that has rebounded from the last to the first team in their division, beating the likes of the Vikings, of the Lions. We are talking about Ben Johnson, a guy, a first-time head coach coming over from the Lions and making a winning season. And with all the tools that he has, you talked about Luther Burden earlier, he is making best use out of them. And when you want to compare, I believe the biggest thing when we look at Coach of the Year goes with impact. It is the impact over the performance. But if you can get both, you got Ben Johnson. And when you look at this team, when you look at the Detroit Lions, they look terrible without him. I mean, they're not even making the playoffs. But yet Ben Johnson has turned around the Chicago franchise. And for you Bears fans, he is a revelation compared to the last 15 years. And we look at some of the other coaches, whether it is Cohen, whether it is Vrabel, McVay, I mean, you can't even put him up there because of Stafford's season. Hell, give me Mike McDonald on the Seahawks. Look at that team that has just surged to the number 1 seed. We are seeing some great head coaches, but I always want to give the impact. And I think Ben Johnson has the most impact on his former team and now the team that is going to be a top team in this playoff run.
I like your argument. I like what you're saying. Don't get me wrong. But you talk about impact and the impact that Ben Johnson has been giving to the Bears. And I agree with you. I mean, without him, who knows what this Bear team could possibly be. Caleb Williams is one of the higher, he's, I think, leading the league in passes, in his passes being incomplete. Overall, Ben Johnson has been able to perform and make it to a winning record. But when you're talking about impact, you're talking about Kyle Shanahan. That is the impact. Kyle Shanahan is the impact himself, because you would think the impact would be your star-studded defensive players. You think the impact would be your star-studded tight end being out or your recently paid quarterback being out, but it's not. And when you say Kyle Shanahan doesn't have the resume, I guess you would say, for this year. He's in one of the top divisions, continues to perform no matter what the players are in front of him, and continues to win. He is impactful. He is a very big impact to this team. And what is the Coach of the Year award? I feel like it should be the best coach this year. And when you look at the impact, it makes no sense why Kyle Shanahan shouldn't be a front runner every single year. He's constantly at a winning record no matter what the situation is. Last quarterback, my third string, fourth string quarterback, yeah, I'm going to make him into a star and pay him 160 whatever. I'm going to make him a star. I'm going to make guys into stars. I'm going to turn people into my scheme and continue to win games. Kyle Shanahan should win Coach of the Year because it's not about who upgraded a franchise over 1 year. It's about who consistently wins and who is consistently at a winning record.
Well, no matter who you got as Coach of the Year, he's still a great coach. You know who's not a great coach? It's Thomas Frank of Tottenham Hotspurs. If you are not a Premier League fan, you need to understand this man. Yes, he beat Crystal Palace 1-0. That's great. He's also lost in dramatic fashion to so many teams this year that has seen the Spurs go 11th ranked in the Premier League. Santi, give me some insights here.
Yeah, I mean, it is not looking good over here at Tottenham Hotspur. I'm not a Spurs fan at all. Let me just reiterate this. This is we're going to be talking about this with a complete smile on our faces the whole time, me and Andy, because we don't like Spurs. But overall, when you look at this team, Thomas Frank was supposed to be revolutionary. Thomas Frank was supposed to be the answer to all the problems Ange Postecoglou was giving Tottenham. What ends up happening here is that Thomas Frank isn't the answer. Thomas Frank has completely shifted this team and the mentality of this team for the worse or the better or the mediocre, because he's not really doing anything different to what Ange Postecoglou was doing. Right now, as we speak, if we just cut it and we look at the season right now, Ange Postecoglou had the same record as Thomas Frank. That should be concerning. If you're a Spurs fan and you were an Ange out and a Thomas Frank guy in, and you're looking at the fact that your new coach, this guy who's supposed to take your team back to a top 6, is at the same spot that Ange was this time of year. Thomas Frank has not been convincing at all. And once again, you can't really say it's a player issue, because although, yes, you think you need new replacements, and Andy will get into those replacements, those possible replacements, but you have guys who are certified. You have guys who are talented. Van de Ven, Pedro Porro, Jed Spence, Mohamed Kudus. These guys who have consistently done it in the Prem. and they don't win. They're not winning at all. Ange Postecoglou had a higher goal difference at plus 17 to Thomas Frank's plus 4. It's not making any sense right now why Ange is actually looking like the better manager for Spurs right now. A guy who won silverware for Spurs, yet still got sacked and hated instantly. Thomas Frank, is he out? Who would even be a good option to bring in? Andy, please help me. Spurs, let's rebuild this somehow.
Well, first things first, the Spurs are allergic to anything gold and or silver. That's why Thomas Frank is at the position that he is in now. I think the first thing that they have to do, you got to bring in some talents that maybe fell out of favor with their club. Whether that be Savinho or, honestly, I know they were kicking tires with Antoine Semenyo. Maybe they get him as well. I mean, as a Bournemouth fan, look, we already gave you Solanke. So you got to do something here. But what my biggest issue is, I would not want to see a constant change of coaches, styles, things like that. You brought up some really good players, and I would agree. But when you lose someone like Heung-min Son, that was the heart of your team, it is never going to be a smooth transition. And I think it starts with investing with somebody that is your Haaland type of player, your Bellingham type of player, someone that maybe is not going to break the bank, but you rely and you put all your trust into him. Whether that be Van de Beek, I mean, that guy is a stud. The fact that he's running full field and scoring as a center back is fucking crazy. But I think it starts with maybe you keep him for the end of the season. You keep him until past the World Cup, past AFCON, past all these international tournaments, and you just see what he's got. Because look, and there's anything that you learn with changing coaches, it's that you just lose every single part of chemistry that you gained the last 2 years with the players, and now the players fall out of form. You bring in some great talent and they do nothing because you just have constant moves. And I think that the Spurs need to invest in their midfield. You have to control the midfield. Running a 5-back is so old, right? That is so Simeone coded. I think you need to play attacking football in 2025 and 2026 and 2027. You need your midfielders to be good, and some of them that you brought in, I won't name his name because people will get mad that I'm calling him out for not playing well, but he hasn't been playing well. So I think you need some consistency there first. Give him the end of next year, and then we can kind of make some moves and kind of see from there. But as a watch, as a viewer, I love to see it burn.
Yeah. I'm not even a BPL fan. I am an Inter Milan through and through, but I can sit here and tell you, I don't like Spurs. Something about them makes no sense either, because Andy can attest to this. One of my favorite players that isn't a Colombian or an Inter player is Harry Kane. I absolutely adore Harry Kane. I think he's one of the best strikers of our generation, but I can't stand the Spurs. I absolutely hate the Spurs. And when we go from one Spur to another, I think our moods change very differently, because when we're talking about the San Antonio Spurs in NBA, this team is a sleeping giant. For those who don't know, the San Antonio Spurs have now won 3 games. I count it, 3 games against the number 1 seeded Thunder, who at one point looked like they were going for the record of most wins in a league phase. That record seems incredible to me. I don't think that's ever going to be surpassed. Andy, as a Warriors fan, I mean, just rattle off how impressive this record is.
Newer fans, they don't understand how good this 2016 Warriors team that broke the record, that went 73-9, how great that they were. They were amazing. And when you compare the two of OKC and the 2016 Warriors, the Thunder are 26-5. Just the spacing of losses is insane. The Warriors were 48-5. That is a 22-game difference. The Warriors started at 27-0. We are talking about the prime of the Warriors. And while ultimately they did not win the championship because they blew that 3-1 lead, we can still reminisce on how great that team was. Look, if you want to see one person and you want to watch one person that drove a team to victory, it will be never miss a midi, Sean Livingston. That man was insane. And when you want to compare the two, OKC and the Warriors blow them out. And look, they may be losing at the half, but do you remember the third quarter Warriors? The prime of the Oracle Arena, where at the end of the third quarter, you would hear
He's not trying to just coach hard the last 9, 10, 11, 12 men on the team. He coaches Tim Duncan.
As a fan, I was like, dude, if I had to go there, I would be scared shitless. This team is one of the best, if not the best team of all time. They had it more difficult than the Bulls. I don't care what you say to me. They had to deal with social media. They had to deal with all of this things that the Bulls never had to worry about. We are talking about a team that made KD quit. One of the best players of all time quit and joined them. If that's not monumental, I don't know what is. Santi, you have to agree with me there.
No, I do. And it just speaks to the levels of how incredible that team was and how incredible the Warriors was at that time. They didn't end up winning. You're correct about that. And let's just go back to the Thunder, because this is a very horrible December for the Thunders. They have lost a total of now 5 games to what we thought. I personally thought they were breaking this record. I thought they were going to be close to this record. The Thunder looked so dominant this year, but these losses to the Spurs makes me think otherwise. Wemby is a big stop to Chet, and a big stop to Chet can actually mean a lot to this team, and a lot to this team in terms of defensive work and overall paint ability. Wemby stops so much of this offense of the Thunder that it kind of negated them. And when you look at the Spurs, their guards, Stephon Castle and De'Aaron Fox, had wonderful performances against this Thunder team and was able to battle against the guards of the Thunder team, of this Thunder's team. Overall, the Spurs have consistently beaten the Thunder. I know this is 3 games and this is a small sample size, but it's as simple as saying, if this is a 4-game series, this is 3-0 right now. The Thunder are losing, and they have lost consistently to the Spurs. It seems like they kind of have their number. I think the Thunder should completely avoid or try to find ways to avoid them in playoffs, because this consistency, this consistent losing is a big tell to what is the main flaws of the Thunder. And those happen to be flaws that the Spurs capitalize so well on. It's just incredible to see. This young Spurs team is already performing and improving and beating these top-level teams. In 2 to 3 years, Andy, let's be honest. Are we cooked? Are the Spurs just going to be a sleeping giant until they eventually wake up? Because with Victor Wembanyama, you can pretty much do anything.
Look, with Wemby, you can't do anything, but I think OKC still having those draft picks is insane. I mean, they're set up for success better than any team in this league, and it's going to take Wemby putting on a performance. It is going to have to be a 2019 Kawhi Leonard playoff performance from Wemby to kick OKC. And I think they can do it. I think they found their boogeyman in the French Giant. And I think Wembanyama is one of the most insane talents. When you look at him, he provides everything that you want. While he doesn't have the physical mass, I think that it can be gained like Giannis did when he came into the league, where he is slowly building that over time. And then you see a prime of 6, maybe even 7 years, to where he is just so dominant. And I think that's what we see with the Spurs team. And if they can continue historically what they've done, it is going to be a Spurs OKC battle every single year.
To wrap it up, I mean, we are both MMA connoisseurs. I know this is around the Christmas time. For all you MMA fans, there is pretty much nothing that is out there for you to watch. Some good boxing this week. Naoya Inoue had a wonderful performance. But overall, we didn't really get much. So, Andy, I'm just going to toss a little fun question to you. 2026 is rolling around the corner. We saw so many new champions this year. If I'm not mistaken, we're looking at a total of 10 new champions this year. 2026 is a big year. We got 12 months ahead of us. Who do you think will be your next champion? Who do you think is going to be your next UFC title in any weight class?
Instantly, I want to think flyweight. As much as I love Josh Van, it's going to be interesting to see whether he rematches Pantoja, whether he gets Manel Cap. Like that weight class is so fun, and I'm so glad it has this resurgence. So I don't know if Van loses the title, but it's very interesting to kind of see that. Instantly, I kind of want to go to bantamweight. I think, Merab has been so great, and Petr Yan had an amazing performance to where, hey, let's run it back and let's see it. So I think there's opportunity there, but I think the biggest one, and I'm going to go on a limb here, give me Diego Lopez. Whether it is him beating Volk or whether it is him beating whomever gets it after.
No.
I don't know if it's at the end of this year, but I think he's too good. The way that he put out Jean Silva, I mean, who else is doing that to him? No one. He made him look human. And I don't know if he actually wins it, but I'm just saying keep your eye out for the Cowboy.
I cannot believe you just said that. You turned on Volk. For those of you guys who have no idea of our friendship or our close relation with Volkanovski, he does not know us at all. But that first Max Holloway fight, the only people who were saying Volk was going to win, Volk was going to dominate Max, was us two. We adore Volkanovski, and we have been such big fans of Volkanovski for years. For you to switch up and say Diego Lopez is going to take his belt, I am heartbroken for Volk. I feel disgusted here. I'm going to go into my tangent. I'm going to act like I didn't even hear that. I'm going to act like Volkanovski losing the belt did not come out of your mouth, all right? My pick here, and it's going to be a low-key pick. I want to throw a dart in the wall because I think it's possible. Give me Max Holloway. Max Holloway has the chance, if he beats Oliveira, to be right in line for Ilya at 155. And I think at 155, Max Holloway proves a very big skill set and a very big change to Ilya's game compared to their fight at 145. I think Max is a lot quicker, a lot more durable, and a lot overall a better striker and more thoughtful in the cage when he's at 155. He's performed spectacularly, and I know that he has to get through Charles first, and that's a tough fight. But if he does get through that, he's next in line for that title shot. I'm throwing a dart in the wall. I'm going to need a lot of things to go well here, but give me Max Holloway to somehow overtake everybody and be champion once again. The Blessed Express. Give me Max Holloway here. Listen, it's one of those takes where in March, June time, you're not really going to be thinking about it. But come next December, you might be looking at me as the Oracle. I might be Mystic Mac, baby. I might have this down to a T. Or I might be delusional and Charles Oliveira wins, which I'm obviously going to be happy for as a Charles Oliveira fan. So it's a win-win for me. Either way, it's a win-win here. Guys, overall, how do you guys feel about this podcast? We love to talk about all sports, and so this just was an easy format for us. And I would love to talk about more topics.